KalPay Taleem. My name is Rania Sakrani, and today we'll be talking about the challenges that students face while applying to Ivy League universities and the frequently made mistakes that they might do. So today we have Qimra Hameed with us, who is the CEO of MapEd. Hello Qimra, how are you?
I'm good, Rania. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for joining us today. So we have some questions that we had reached out to students for, what are the questions that you have, what are the mistakes that you might feel that you might make, and we would love to hear your input on this as well. So I'll start off with the first question.
Okay.
Do you feel that there are any specific challenges that Pakistani students face during their applications to these Ivy League universities?
The first thing that I would like to say is that our students are very, very focused on their academics, right? So the first time they interact with the college application, they realize there was a host of things that they were supposed to be doing. They were supposed to be focusing on research, on their extracurricular activities. So there's this huge lag of activities that they've done that they enter the application process with. And unfortunately, they enter it at a time when they've already started their senior year, or even later than that at times. So there's not a lot of time to cover up. Secondly, a major thing is that there is a huge financial constraint when it comes to applying to top universities like Ivy League. So we're talking roughly $60,000 to $90,000 per annum,
Right.
which with our current conversion rate is a lot, right? So not only the tuition fees, but then there are tests involved, there are application fees involved. So there's a lot of money that goes into this. And that is where we also believe that KalPay's partnership with us comes in really, really handy, because we can then split down those costs into equal payments for them, and the process can be more smoothly undertaken. So the other constraint other students usually face is that international universities want to see a personality, right? They value diversity, they value the sort of experiences you've had. And our students, even if they're focusing on things, right, they're focusing on very mainstream things. Focusing on a very generic area within their subject. So there's no niche that they've decided for themselves. So they cannot sort of form that direct connection with the university program that we want them to really have a good chance of getting in.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are some of the challenges. Obviously, there's a host of other challenges that these students face, but these are some of the most major ones that they do.
So, like you had mentioned, I'd also want to go into a bit of detail about the services that KalPay Taleem can provide to the students. Basically, KalPay Taleem enables you to break down your education expenses into easy monthly installments. So whether that might be your semester fee, whether that might be consultancy fees through MapEd, whether you want to take an examination, you want to pay your hostel dues, or any kind of educational expenses, you can bring them to KalPay. And they can break it down into easy monthly installments, and they're totally customized as per the student's requirements. The process is very simple. They require minimal documentation, and the entire process can be done, within 24 to 48 hours if you have the complete documentation. So, Qimra, we'll be moving on to the second question. We want to know, what are the common mistakes that students usually make during this application process?
So perhaps the greatest trap that there is out there is writing their essays. So there are a lot of essays involved. There is a general statement of purpose that's goes to every university, but then there are supplements or sort of university specific questions for each university. The thing students do is they write one SOP, copy paste it everywhere, and they think they're good to go. That is something that is horrendous for their applications. My favorite rule of thumb is that if they can put their finger or their thumb on a word on the university name and still reapply that sentence to another university, they're wasting their space. It has to be that specific, right? So the first mistake that they make is they do not personalize their statements to each university. The second is that they believe that they can, sort of exaggerate things, that they can be not honest within the application process, and admissions officers can see it right through it. Right. So that's a huge mistake. Just put whatever work you've done, present it in the best way possible, but do not try to put in things, or try to sneak things in that you have not done. And one of our most important mistakes that students make is procrastination. So they will start a month before the deadline and think that they're good to go. That never works out well. You sort of need to figure out your universities way ahead in time, then you need to backtrack that process. So you decide your programs first, then you do your activities. It does not work the other way around. So if you start at the right time, you're saving yourself a lot of trouble. And then students usually do not do a lot of activities in their summers, right? They spend their summers doing random internships, random things that are once again not targeted. So I think it all boils down to really targeting everything to their program. And the final mistake the students make, they will write SOP for one university, submit it to another. As as impossible as that sounds as a mistake, students do that mistake, and that costs them obviously an admission. So yeah, those are some of the very common mistakes that students make every other day.
Thank you for highlighting these mistakes. I'm sure, in the entire hectic routine that it is during this application process, people do make these mistakes. So, since the mistakes you mentioned are mostly related to, the SOP and the interviews, can you explain how MapEd can play their part in helping out throughout this process and writing a compelling SOP and preparing for these universities?
So I think one of the primary things that we do for our students is help them work out their SOP and their interviews. So the process for writing an SOP is very, very rigorous on our end. We start with brainstorming sessions essentially. There are several techniques that we use in there. Some are free diagram, T diagrams, a lot of techniques basically, just to make sure that whatever we're putting into that SOP is really, really concrete, right? And the most important thing within the SOP is personalization. So we do not have a standard pattern that we will, or a standard template that we will give to our students. We will have a dedicated counselor assigned to each specific student who will be working with them every step of the way in terms of their SOP. Once we're done with the SOP, most people think that's the end of writing the SOP. So there's a lot that goes into writing as well, but I'm not going to go into that detail. But once we're done with writing the SOP, then there's an entire process of wetting that SOP.
Right.
So it goes through multiple counselors, it goes through students who are already studying at those universities or alumni of those universities. So let's say you want to apply to Cornell. So we'll make sure that someone who's at Cornell is reading your application at least once. So yeah, that's just some of the things that we help our students with when it comes to SOPs. When it comes to interviews, I cannot stress this enough. You need to know the program inside out.
True.
You need to know what you're talking about. If you just have read a single page for that program, or you think you read 2 posts on that program and you think you're good to go, you won't be. The interviewers that are going to be interviewing you have either been through those programs themselves or have worked for those programs for over decades at times, right? So they know the program and they really, really want you to know the program. Other than the program, they ask you personality related questions, right? So they ask you, when was a situation that you took a leadership position in. Most students will go in, they will have a story prepared, but they wouldn't know how exactly to present that story. So what we do is we run them through multiple techniques. My favorite is the STAR technique. So you tell the situation, then you describe the task, then you tell what action you did and what result you got out of it. So just one of the many things that we do. Knowing the program also helps in terms of formulating questions for the interviewer. So it's a two-way process. They don't just want it to be, a monologue of sorts. They want it to be a conversation. So you ask the interview what you're really interested in. Helps you to know the program better, to know the university better, and helps them understand how in-depth your research has been, right? So yeah, that's some of the things.
Alright, thanks Qimra. Just to end it, I would love to know, what is one success story that you would like to share with all of our viewers today?
I think a challenging situation for us always is when someone comes to us who does not have, an outstanding GPA or an outstanding GRE score, and they still want to go into a university for a master's with a full scholarship or at least close to that, right? And I think one of my personal successes is getting one of these students who had an average GRE score, a GPA of around 3.0. And we got her in for a computer science program on a 100% scholarship.
Oh, wow.
That I believe is one of my own personal successes at the company. So yeah,
that sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was actually very, very wholesome and fruitful at the end of it.
Of course, because you're going through that entire process and you're actually
and you know the uncertainty, uncertainty you walk that process in with, right? And then when you finally achieve that, that's like a huge sense of relief.
Amazing. I hope that through this partnership we are able to help out more students who are looking for consultancy services and they get amazing placements throughout this world. So we're looking forward to working with MapEd.
We're looking forward to working with KalPay.
Thank you. Okay, so lastly, I just want to know what is the timeline in terms of these applications? Till when are you taking students up for this process?
Usually varies country to country, right? So for the US, the application deadlines are roughly around the start of January, go up to max till mid of February. So they stop taking students by the start of December. But for other countries like the UK, Canada, Australia, we go up till March because applications are open much later. So yeah, that's that.
Alright, thank you so much for coming in and talking to all of us. I hope that this session proved to be a sort of inspiration and to get you a head start into how to go about the application process for these universities. I will be leaving the contact information down below in the description if you guys are interested in availing services from either MapEd or KalPay. And thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you, Anna.